Hello and welcome to part 2 of our case study series, Invoicing and E-commerce. In today's part, we are going to create invoices. So we are going to first generate an invoice, and then we will make it so you can send it to someone else so they can pay for it. Then they can get an invoice back as PDF, right? We start by creating a new object called Invoices, to which we will add a few fields, a price amount, product drop-down, and a status drop-down so we can know what the status of an invoice, right? If it's paid or if it's waiting for payments. We'll also add two fields that are ClickFix related. You can skip that if you want, but you'll see also on this video how to do this. So for this invoice, instead of sending them to a long link, we'll create a short URL, right? Customized short URL that is unique so you can send that by SMS and it just looks cleaner. And also, instead of using Ontraport invoices, we're going to generate a PDF invoice on the fly for this. And so we need two fields for that, short URL field and a PDF link field. Then we'll need to create two relationships, a one-to-many from contact, one contact, many invoices that will be used so we can, refer invoices against the contact. And then we have a one-to-one relationship that I'm calling paying invoice, and this you will see how we use it, but because invoices are children, it's easier to have a one-to-one in the mix because we can just, target a specific invoice for a specific contact and know what we are charging. So that's why we have this relationship here. From there, it's time now to work on our pages. So first we'll create a contact page for invoice management. And this is simply a page where we have, an invoice form with the product and the amount and the status. So we also have a related contact/email relationship to attach this invoice to a specific contact. And then for good measure, let's have a dynamic block below to show unpaid invoices, right? Where we just have this available, and this is the start of an invoice dashboard for your staff, basically. So we are simply going to clone our thank you page from part 1. And all we have to change here is instead of checking the field value in the contact record for the status of the payments, right? We're going to go through a one-to-one relationship now. And we will check the status in the invoice directly. That's why one of the reasons we needed this one-to-one relationship. We could also have made this as redone the thank you page as an invoice dynamic page, but just a personal choice here. Don't worry too much about it. There are two ways to skin this cat. Okay, now we need an actual invoice to show to people, right? So let's create an invoice dynamic template. At the top of the page, I see three possible blocks. One if the invoice is unpaid, right? Where we will add our pay now button, which is going to be on the same page at the bottom. Then if paid, we'll download the PDF, which you'll learn how to generate later on. And if any other status, we'll just have an error message, right? So then at the bottom, I'm having my payment form for my contact. And I'm gonna first hide it, and then I'm gonna display it when the client pays on Pay Now. You can also have this on another page, doesn't matter, this is just how we like to work, right? So this is a contact form on which I have my credit card information, and a hidden drop-down that will set the paying invoice status to charge invoice. Then I will have a pre-filled field with the relationships paying invoice, so I can identify which invoice my contact is paying. And that's why I could have totally sent them to the right thank you page before, because we have this information thanks to this one-to-one, and that's where the one-to-one is necessary. So there we have $0 product. That's it really. Now, if we set the thank you page to be a new thank you page, then the client will fill up this form here. It will give us this card, and then an automation will create later, will charge this card, and this guy will be sitting on the thank you page until, payment is failed or not failed. Then we can clone our invoice page that we just created to create an invoice PDF. We'll clean it up a little bit to remove the blocks that don't make sense, and we'll keep it, as simple as possible so we can generate a PDF from it later. Okay, now it's time to set up our automations. So the first automation will be an invoice automation. Sadly, we cannot share invoice automations with you directly or anything object related, right? So that's why we have done a lot of things in the contact record also in this setup rather than putting everything in the invoice. So I trigger this automation when the invoice is created, and if it's paid, I'm just going to log the transaction. If the invoice says when it's created, so remember it's created by the staff, right? So if it's created and it says charge invoice, then I'm gonna clean up my paying invoice field and I'm gonna relate that invoice to the contact. And this, because the status is charge invoice, then we link the contact and the invoice together via the relationship paying invoice and a webhook. So we are going to clear the status of the invoice, and then we are going to set it to charge invoice again so that it triggers the automation we are going to create in a minute. Then below that, we have two goals for the status being updated. If it's updated to awaiting payments, we'll go to awaiting payment below, but that's okay, that should not happen. And if the invoice is moved to paid, then we can generate a PDF version of it and exit. We also have, like, if it's void or draft, we just ignore this invoice. And then if the invoice, this is the most important part, if the invoice is awaiting payments, will generate a short link of the invoice. This is a ClickFix feature, which I think you can do with Zapier and a lot of other services out there. We just generate a unique link for the invoice. We add an email to send that link to the contacts. And then we wait for the status to be either charge invoice or paid. And we exit, quite simply. Because nothing needs to happen here, everything will happen in the next automation. So now, all we have to do is our last automation, and we are going to clone the invoice from part 1, right, the one that pay what you want, but we're going to change a few things in there. So first, the trigger now will be related to the object. Paying invoice status is updated, and it's charge invoice, right? So that's how we know, okay, this is going to need a charge now. Then I'm doing a simple condition for project A and B. You'll see in a further case study that with our webhook, you can simply enter the name of the product. So you could just have a field with a name in there for the invoice, and we'll create the product if it doesn't exist, or charge the card for the proper product if it's found. So we have our webhooks for each product. Then we keep exactly the same as before, our two goals, except this time it's the invoice invoice status that we will update instead of updating the status in the contact record. Note that in the automation you have imported for this case study, you will not be able to see those triggers because we cannot export automation that have custom objects related fields in them. That's a bummer, but that's how it is. So you will have to follow the steps you see on this video to make it the same so it works. And that's it for this part really. You now have a page that you can generate an invoice and for a specific amount and product. It will send a link to your contacts related, and then the contact can pay, and he has access. If he gets back to the page, he will have access to the invoice as PDF. As always, reach out if you need help setting this up, and have a great day.